What's up, and welcome back to Nowstalgia Pod, giving you your weekly look at what's going on in pop culture. My name is Pat Sheehan, joined, as always, by the trusty co-host, the one, the only, the now fan of Zach Wilson, Dave Martin Swagger. Dave, how you feeling this week, man?
Doing well, doing well. Heating
Jets
up.
had a good showing.
Yes, they did. Heating up just like the Jets here in the Northeast. Summer finally getting here, I think. Very nice.
Yeah, it's finally, like, the heat's holding. It's been going up and down, but now it's like
Right.
60s ish around me, at least. So
We get winter and summer, so you just gotta get fully into one of the other at this point. There's no middle ground, no spring and fall anymore.
yeah, I do kind of miss spring and fall, not gonna lie, but the planet is getting warmer, it seems, and also colder at times. So anyways, why don't we move on to what we got this week, because we got some albums, we got a movie, and then we're going to be talking about the movies for this year. And we're going to start with a person dropping their first official album, Morray, with Street Sermons. Dave, you mentioned that you wanted to give this a listen. It was a pretty tight 30-ish minute album. Thought there were some good moments and some moments on it. How are you feeling about Street Sermons?
Yeah, Street Sermons actually is being called his commercial mixtape, his debut mixtape for Morray on Interscope after catching a big hit starting last fall with Quicksand, which really I think is the anchor of most of his fans, but he seems to have been attracting listens and streams to other songs since then, so it seems to be a genuine build up here. But yeah, I mean, I think when you see some bit of virality that seems to be sticking, it's always important to pay attention. And I think in Moray's case, he's kind of interesting to me because there's a really obvious comparison in terms of modern people in hip hop. That'd be Rod Wave, in
Hmm.
terms of singing rappers. But I actually like Morray, I think, a little bit more, song to song anyway, because he seems to have a more like positive like tinge to his sound. Like Rod Wave has only gotten sadder and sadder as he's released music, and to his credit, it's working for him. But uh Morray, I don't know if it's just like that Fayetteville, North Carolina like drawl he brings, or the gospel inspirations you can pick up on here and there, but it seems to be a little bit more upbeat, even if it's not always like positive, lyrical subject matter. But he seems to me uh like like happier, even when it's not happy. If that makes sense. Rod Wave sometimes he's a downer, so it depends. You got to be in the mood for him, I think.
Yeah, that like rapping, singing that you mentioned, certainly hard to kind of, I think, move away from that comparison, only because Rod Wave also, up and coming, or obviously more established than Morey, but still in the early part of his career. Anyways, I do think he's more upbeat, but I also didn't find the music always super interesting. I do feel like it kind of sounded samey at points.
Mm.
But I do think there's a couple of standouts, like early on, like Trenches into Quicksand. Obviously, Quicksand's a bona fide hit, but then I also think there's a couple of other, like Switched Up later on. I thought was a pretty decent track. These are also the ones that are most played on Spotify, so I think these are kind of the consensus ones as I'm looking through here that stood out to people. Any of those tracks stood out, or anything else that you really liked?
Yeah, like I do like Trenches, and that's funny because he's
Yeah.
like really singing on that. Like
Mhm.
sometimes when we talk about this all the time now, like melody and hip hop and how it's the dominant force and like the main thing that people latch onto with their sounds these days. But that case in Rod Wave also has been doing this too. It's like sometimes you're just actually singing. It's not just like sing rapping. It's like legit singing. But I think Morray manages to handle it well, and that's what I think makes Quicksand so great. Is that it's like really catchy, and he still is kind of singing on that melody, but there's a hip hop cadence to it, and yeah, it works. But I do agree. I mean, this kind of stuff in general for me, like it'll
Uh-huh.
definitely blend, and sound similar. So unless you're really engaging with the lyrics, and he does talking about some stuff in terms of like having a daughter and not having a place to stay, and like the struggle stuff you can imagine. But I think he's at his best when he's kind of molding the two sounds, and for the most part, it doesn't feel like he really goes like hard rap on any of this. Like he really is always sticking to the heavy melody and the singing. But yeah, I like Trenches. I like Switched Up as well.
Yeah, I think those are the two standouts for me as well. And yeah, I think your analysis is right. A lot of times, the singing rapping can kind of sound samey by it, especially if the album is produced. I think also in the same way. Like I don't think any of the beats really stand out as like really catchy or necessarily like really impressive. It sounds like it's more so just his overall ability to rap and sing pretty well. And for a first time, I think there's a lot to like here, but I think there's a lot of room for growth as well. So Morray on the come up. And also on the come up is Julia Michaels, who established in one sense of her career. Obviously, her ability as a songwriter is undeniable. And she's been writing hits for a while. Just kind of looking at her like writing credits, it's
Mm.
really, really impressive. And if you somehow managed to escape hearing a Julia Michaels song to this point, I'm very impressed by your ability to just stay away from pop music pretty much in general.
Right.
Um, but I think when we reviewed her, or I don't know if we did we, yeah, we did talk about
Part
Sugar
one of the
Monologues
yeah,
part
those two
one.
EPs. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I think we were a little underwhelmed, because we know that the talent is there, but her ability to kind of make her own songs was, I think, lacking a little bit. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And like I think the big thing is like that was 2 years ago at this point. When like
Yeah.
those first few EPs started to come out, and she was attempting to branch out as a solo act, which is obviously a nice thing you want to see a songwriter making their own name more publicly. Obviously, this lends to a greater career. That's obvious, but having all those Selena credits and Bieber credits and litany of other mainstream pop figures. Since then, since that solo career started, she has kept that up. She
Hmm.
co-wrote "Pretty Please" off Future Nostalgia. She did like half of the Demi album that just came out. That song, "If the World Was Ending" by JP Sachs, was nominated for Song of the Year at the Grammys this year. So she's
Yep.
still very much in demand, like mainstream songwriter, and it's obviously very successful still. But it was funny for me to like go in like knowing this is like her quote debut album in a certain sense, and as a solo act, and looking at Spotify and seeing that she has 20 million monthly listeners already. And then you think about it, it's like for the most part, it's like a lot of features and other
Hmm.
stuff. And obviously we know Issues from a while back, which is a big song, billion streams, but like I hadn't really noticed that so many of her other songs had made huge impressions. Like the song off the last 50 Shades album has 300 million streams. Heaven, news to
Yeah.
me. Uh,
She
but
does numbers, man.
yeah, and well, that was the thing. Like, you're thinking about those solo EPs, it was like, making an identity when you're songwriter first. And even if you're not a bad vocalist, you're not like a really obvious standout vocalist the way like Ariana or Demi is. You're more of the Taylor Swift sort of things when it's pen first. How do you make that name as a solo act? And I was
Hmm.
actually impressed with, I think, this debut album because I think she sounds different than she used to. And I think she's getting more of an identity. Um, and I think just her finding an identity was kind of like that central thesis we had listening to that inner monologue EP. Is because like it just wasn't present then. And I feel like she's getting there now.
Yeah, I agree. I think she's trying a little bit more, trying more things. I should say in this album. She's not trying more, but she's definitely experimenting a little bit more. Even like probably my favorite run on the album is songs 4 through 6. Little did I know, Orange Magic, and Lie Like This. Those are probably my three favorites,
Mm.
and they all are very different songs.
Yeah.
Little did I know is this like ballad. Orange Magic is this like 80s pop. Um,
Hmm.
Kind of like 1989 Taylor almost in a way. And then Lie Like This is a little bit more like modern pop sounding, like
Yeah.
that
Dance pop.
Kygo, yeah, dance pop sound. So yeah, I do think there's like definitely a growth, but I also did feel like she was still trying to find whatever that sound is going to be. But I do think it's refining for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, so the bouncing of genres definitely stood out to me, and I guess that's more of a negative because, like I said, she has all these quote hits, whether it's a feature, whether it's her songwriting or it's her as lead vocalist, but they are kind of all over the place. So I think what stood out to me in terms of her finding her place is that her voice, I think, is kind of settling
Mm,
in. She has a raspy voice
yeah,
as a pop vocalist, and she didn't really have that before. I think it sounds good. Like on
yeah,
I think the big hit of any new tracks on this is "All Your Exes," which is the lead single, and I think she like the edge required for those lyrics. It works with how she's performing. So yeah, I think after this, the next step is maybe settling in on one of those sounds and figuring
yeah,
out what you can do because clearly she can write songs good enough for probably most of that. It's more about how she
yeah.
can handle it as a performer.
Yeah, I almost wonder if her like songwriting for so many people of so many different types of genres almost makes it hard for her to focus in a bit because she's like, well, I was working on this sound with Kygo and I had this idea for a song. She probably just has so many things that she's working on writing that she just has so much inspiration kind of coming in.
Yeah,
Um, and I think as I'm like kind of going through this album, I think one of the other things that probably made it hard to find one central like sound to this is I don't know if there's like a theme to these songs. I mean, there's like the general like like heartbreak, um, you know, wanting someone back type things.
yeah,
The woman empowerment song, but I don't think there's anything like centrally yet. So I think as she just continues to like probably like find inspiration, find things that she wants to write about, she'll continue to grow. I mean, we know the talent is there. It's just about I think continuing to refine. You said that all your exes was your favorite standout. What other songs did you like or that or stood out to you?
yeah. So I also like this just because I think it's like you know really catchy. That bass line's really
Hmm.
nice. Love is weird. Really falling up. All your exes was kind of stark to me because that's like a much more stripped down song right after like all your exes. Like I said, is a little more like lyrical edge to it.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I think why I like this probably stands out just because that's really easy to revisit. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not really big on her ballad stuff right now. I just don't think like er, her performances wow me enough for that type of songs. Again, that's not like my favorite type of pop anyway. But uh, she's definitely like improved and changed a lot since those first solo EPs, which is interesting to see because considering how much she is working, to actually see
Hmm.
like some kind of like really stark change like this for someone who's still like weirdly nascent as a soloist. It's an interesting career.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, how old is she? She like
She's
24,
27 now, but
27. Wow.
been working a long time.
Yeah, it's an amazing career for someone who's only 27. I mean, I think we know she'll probably make better stuff, but this is definitely a step in the right direction. Like I mentioned, I think Orange Magic is probably my favorite track off the album. Definitely pops right in the middle. So give it a spin. I think not in chronological order is worth your time, and
Yeah.
getting familiar with Julia Michaels is certainly worth your time.
Come to think of it, it's also aptly named because it jumps around all genres, so you really
Yeah,
can listen in non chronological order if you wish.
yeah, absolutely. Dave, do you feel like you have to listen to the new Royal Blood album in chronological order? Typhoons.
Hmm, that's a good question. Uh, for the most part, it sounds very similar to me, so maybe that's also a no. I don't know. What do you think? Do you need to listen to Typhoons front to back?
Hmm. Well, I'm. It's interesting because Royal Blood is a group I've been like it's been on my peripheries, but and I've heard a couple of tracks, but never really like dug into them too much.
Right.
I think like Figure It Out is probably the song most people are familiar with them. And I believe that was off their first album, which was self-titled. Yeah, Royal Blood in 2014.
I think that's off the second one from
Oh,
2017.
is it?
I think so.
Sorry.
Yeah. How do we get
Um,
so dark? Oh no, you're right. You're right. Yeah, 2014. So
okay.
they've been at it a while. This is their third album.
Yeah. Um, and I do respect that they seem to like take time between their albums. They're not just putting stuff out all the time. They're obviously putting some thought into these. Typhoons, I think, is interesting because it definitely sounds samey, and they're definitely going for like rock with dance rock, but I just don't know if it totally works all the time. I guess when I was listening to it, I kind of felt like this was the kind of band you would hear like a festival at like 5 o'clock from like across the way. You'd be like, oh, I'm gonna like hang out in the back and like vibe to this, but I'm not
Mm.
necessarily like, oh, Royal Blood have to be front row at that set, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, I also was thinking about that in a little different lens, just because I think that's just kind of their ceiling. They're a duo from England, third album, and they're very much a successful rock band that's below the arena level. These guys can just go play 1,000 people rooms nationwide and across England every time they have an album cycle, and they'll be at every festival. That's what
Yeah.
they do, and it'll be very successful for them. And that's also probably all they ever get to do, you know?
Mhm.
Uh, on the other hand, though, Typhoons, I liked what I heard. I just enjoy that they actually have like really strong bass
Yep.
and uh, maintain a pretty high tempo most of the time. On the other hand, again, it also kind of goes in one ear and out the other. And when it sounds samey by the end, I feel like I largely tuned out because it's a lot of same stuff. And not that I was disliking anything. I did think that one slow track, all we have is now at the end, definitely kind of came out of nowhere. But uh, just because no one really goes like that hard, I guess it's notable for that. Just because like they're like, what peers do they have in terms of this? Because like we're talking about people that go hard these days. It's like the post punk people we've been talking about a lot
Mm.
lately, right? Like they're from Brighton, England. We'll be talking about Squid next week, their debut album. They're also
Yeah.
from Brighton, England. Um, I think like Black Midi and stuff also from over there.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's kind of weird to be like, yeah, this is a band that has completely hit their ceiling. Like I don't know, it feels like a stupid thing to say, but like I just don't know like what else because like they're not making music that like lends them to be getting like 1975 popular, you know?
Yeah. So, I agree. Like, I'm not sure where they go from here, but I also think that that lane isn't necessarily anything to be like knocking them about
No,
because
no,
I
it's not.
I
No.
definitely think these are really competent songs. Like,
I
Trouble's
like the
Coming.
songs.
I gotta say, Trouble's Coming sounds a lot like the Big Data Joywave song, Dangerous to me. Just kind of like that, like almost like thumping kind of like sound. Dun. I don't know, just really, and then his voice also just sounds a lot like that to me. Yeah, I guess that Joywave sound might really be like a good comparison for them. And I also thought songs like, I thought Who Needs Friends, I thought Limbo was pretty good. Boilermaker was fun. Like there's some really fun tracks on here. It's like B level. It's like Dancy Black Keys, I guess. Like you really are
Hmm,
just like,
sure, that's funny.
making them more dance hallish or not dance hallish,
Yeah,
but just
not that, but
modern pop.
right.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess that's the easy comparison too with like the two-person type set, but I don't know. It's just okay. Like it really is just like that 5 o'clock band that you're like, oh, this was a good listen, and maybe I'll add
Hmm.
a song to a playlist. But you're probably never gonna hear someone be like, Royal Blood is my favorite band of all time.
Yeah, that's probably a
Isn't
good way
it?
to put it.
Isn't bad either. Like you need those B level groups. It just feels like rock doesn't have any A level group like that.
No,
Yeah.
especially from like new acts. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. But yeah, I mean, on Typhoons, I like the bass line, pretty consistent. I like the tempo. I
Mhm.
like the singing. It sounds good.
Yeah, for sure. Who Needs Friends is probably my favorite. That like really like distorted guitar and just like really heavy thumping bass drum just is awesome. So I think Typhoons is worth the listen, especially if you like rock and you want to be listening to some new stuff. Just go in with the expectation that they aren't the saviors of rock, which I think is also like we've been talking about this is an ongoing conversation. these bands that should not be put in the sphere, I think, get held up just because everybody wants to have that new exciting rock band, and sometimes you're not going to always find it in royal blood. But speaking of finding some new exciting lanes, Shelley, FKA DRAM, dropping a new album. First one in what, 5 years, 6 years?
2017, I think, was no 2016 was Big Baby Dram. Yeah, shit, been a
Been a
while,
while.
almost 5 years. I think we had that EP where Best Hugs was on,
Hmm.
and that was like 2018, I think. But yeah, it's been a while. Uh, Dram, now Shelley, is going by his given name, is has been out of the public eye a little bit, and I think
Hmm.
we've learned a little bit more about that. Him going to rehab right before the pandemic, uh, that seemed to go well for him, and he also lost a lot of weight and seems to have changed his attitude about life. I think he just seemed like he just was being on the road for 2 years after his big blow up. He seems to just struggle with that lifestyle, and he seems to have left that lifestyle behind, and thus has wanted to change his music to something that I think he thinks better represents how he thinks and acts. And it is kind of funny to listen to him interrogate that because, when we talked about Dram way back, it was, Cha Cha. And that was a big flashpoint because of how Drake did and did not, take inspiration from that for Hotline Bling. Oh, so long ago at this point. And then
Hmm.
Broccoli with Little Yachty, the first big Yachty feature.
Yeah.
These are bangers. And he doesn't actually kind of want to make those bangers. He's like, I can't say anything negative because of all the success these songs brought me, but it's not really who I am.
Hmm.
And he seems to have actually wanted to make R&B, like straight up, like there's no hip hop on this. There's no Cash Machine,
No.
like there's no Broccoli. This is our R&B stuff, and like he's made like the croony stuff here and there when he's popped up, especially. I think of like the feature he had on the Gorillaz album several years ago at this point,
Hmm.
but it's definitely a stark change. And if you're like you know him from Broccoli, it's probably not going to be that recognizable.
Yeah, and I think when Graham really like broke out, people liked him because no one else sounded as upbeat and weird and like embraced that as Duran did. I try to, you think of a song like Broccoli, and it really stands out because it really is like a one of one type song. And I think what I found most disappointing about this new album was every song in a lot of ways felt like they just kind of like blended together and nothing really popped to me too much. And you're getting some big name features on here. You got Erica Badu. You got
Early
um
co-signer of his way back.
yeah, you have her on a song with Watt, which I actually really liked that one. You have Summer Walker, who's up and coming R&B artist that we've talked about. So you have some decent guests, and really it all just kind of blended together, which I think that smooth R&B and his like really like silky voice really like worked. Like I think the song sounded good. It's just it didn't have the highs of his past projects, and it felt a little bit like a letdown. Do you feel the same way?
Oh yeah. Unfortunately, I was just incredibly bored by it.
Mm.
And it's not like it's his fault all that much. Like you said, I think he is good at doing this. He's always sounded good. He's always sound like he has like a really like rich singing voice where it's like weirdly like low register but still warm, because I
Mhm.
think that's just the impression we had of Dram as this Shelley, as this, lovable, fun guy. And he's like, like, again, like that EP that came out a few years ago, that song like Best Hugs. It's like, huh, yeah, you can make like not really hip hop songs at all, and it still kind
Mhm.
of works. But like Best Hugs is upbeat. Like a lot of
Mhm.
this stuff, it's like he cited Usher in some of the press as like a big formative artist for him in terms of his love of R&B, and I'm like, if you say so, because I don't really see the inspiration being taken here. This is just it's just slow. And
Yeah.
like I don't know, maybe if you're really into like those bedroom jams and just you want to just throw that stuff on for the mood, like I guess this can do that for you. But it was just a bit of a letdown for me.
Yeah, that Usher inspiration is really funny because it's like he took all the parts of Confessions that are unmemorable and just really like was like these are my shit. And that's kind of what he made. And that's not to say that the songs are bad, but like when you think about Confessions, you think about Yeah or Burn or even like Confessions Part 2 and those songs really pop, but then there's a lot of songs on Confessions which still a great album and the songs are still pretty good. It's a little like not really my shit, I guess. And maybe it is for other people. Again, these songs are competently made, and DRAM sounds really good on them. It's just not. I think when you compare it to his past stuff, which fair or unfair, it's going to be, it just feels a bit like a letdown. I do think the two songs I liked the most though were the song with her, the lay down, which just sounds in the middle. It has like the swirling, distorted guitars, kind of going around. Hers doing her thing on the track, which I think really adds something, and I think pulls a lot out of DRAM on that song. To sound pretty interesting and different. And then I thought Cooking with Grease was actually pretty good too. I just thought that was like catchier than some of the other tracks. And that bass line is just super groovy. When he gets into his like falsetto ish, I don't even know if it's true falsetto, but it's close. It's pretty impressive. So I don't know. I guess those are the two tracks to me. Any that stood out to you?
Yeah, I guess I like the one with Summer Walker. It's good chemistry there.
Hmm.
I like the ones you mentioned, but yeah, this didn't leave a big impression for me, and I think that's just unfortunate, at least for me, just because it's been such a long while, and it seems like Dram's really happy with where he's been after some time away, so or where he's at now after some time away. So uh, I wish I liked it more, but hey, if it's what he wants to be doing, that's cool too. So you
Yeah.
know, it is what it is.
Maybe in the future there'll be more of a meshing of the two styles. We'll see. But Dave, we should move on to the movie section of the pod. And at times, I was thinking, man, if only there was a little bit of mercy in this movie, a little bit of remorse, maybe.
Ah,
But this
just
movie
a
was
tad.
was without remorse, none of it. Uh, Michael B. Jordan, starring in the adaptation of a Tom Clancy novel, Without Remorse. Um, Man, I should say directed by Stefano Salima,
Yep. Director of
and
Sicario
director.
de Soldado, which was the sequel to Sicario 1, which of course was written by Taylor Sheridan. Taylor Sheridan still wrote Sicario 2 and also wrote one of the passes of the Without Remorse script. So a lot of Sheridan verse synergy there. Uh, and of course, Without Remorse features uh, John Clark, right?
Mhm.
John Kelly. Well, he's John Clark in the books, John Kelly in this movie, which is probably the second most famous Tom Clancy character after Jack Ryan, of course. And this movie was made by Paramount and sold way back last year to Amazon by Paramount. Like they were selling a bunch of movies last year, as we've talked about before. And I think it made sense for Amazon to buy this movie because, of course, they are already invested in the Tom Clancy and the Jack Ryan IP world with, of course, the Jake Gyllenhaal show, which already's got 2 seasons out and apparently is one of their most popular shows. So I think it made sense for Without Remorse to be found at home on Amazon. And of course, Salima as well helped get 000 off the ground for Amazon last year. So made sense all around, I guess. But yeah, Without Remorse kind of just shows up finally. Action thriller. Michael B. Everybody loves him.
Yeah,
And reviews are pretty negative, you gotta say. And I wasn't expecting that. I was like, this is going to be competently made. And yeah, it'll be dark, but I trust Salima. I like Michael B. I'm down. I was not expected to see such negativity around it, to be honest.
it, yeah. I mean, I guess just like looking through some of the criticisms, right? Like, um, people are like kind of knocking it for like an outdated sense of like patriotism and
Oh,
um
sure.
like some of like
Yeah.
the force like franchise type beats to it, I guess. Um, but I think like when you go into a movie like a Tom, especially when you know it's based off a Tom Clancy novel, you kind of know what you're getting at this point. Like Tom Clancy has been in the zeitgeist for what, like 40 years at this point.
Yeah.
Jack Ryan's been a character that's been played by Harrison Ford in the 90s
Hmm.
and was pretty well
Alec
known at that
Baldwin, Ben Affleck has been played a few times. Yeah.
and more recently,
Now
John
Gyllenhaal.
Krasinski. Oh, is it
Oh,
Gyllenhaal
oh,
now?
no, fuck yeah, it's Krasinski, not
Yeah.
Gyllenhaal. Why did I say that? Yeah. Oh, and don't
uh,
forget Chris Pine, Jack Ryan's
yeah.
shadow recruit, the failed bid at a movie universe 10 years
Now
ago.
I just want the Gyllenhaal Jack Ryan. Like make it weird. Let's go. But like yeah, you kind of know what you're getting with this like, special ops,
Yeah,
people,
it's
broken
aggro.
families, yeah, which is like what were people really expecting? I think you get exactly what you think you're going to get from this. I think when the action scenes are on, this movie kicks ass. And I think when it goes to like some of the plot heavy scenes, it's a little bit more like, okay, well, sure. Like, um, I don't know. I guess for me, I don't think the emotional beats or a lot of the like mystery around like who was really driving this was really that interesting or really like that well done. But man, like that scene where he dives underwater to get the supplies off the sinking
Jet.
plane, awesome. That like final shootout in Russia, awesome. Like a lot of these scenes are great. So I
Right.
don't know. I guess I liked the action of it the most.
Yeah, I think it really comes down to like what your temperature was for Sicario too, because that is, I think, a big point of contention for like people that dislike Taylor Sheridan, like the Taylor Sheridan like sensibilities, right? It's very macho, it's very dark, it's very uncompromising, and to some that it's just too much of that, and perhaps not as intelligent as it presents itself to be.
Mhm.
And I totally understand all of that with Without Remorse because, like you said, it's a plot that I've seen some people say it's really confusing. I wouldn't say it's confusing. I actually think it's like unsurprising. Like it's not actually that like revelatory. And there's like I guess there are weird beats that like don't fully pay off. Like when Brett Gelman shows up in Russia as like a kind of a weird piece of casting as like an agent on the other side, and how him and Michael B. They're both pawns, but on different sides of the board, bro. And it's like, whoa, you know? And
Yeah.
I think the script wanted you to be more than like, whoa, you know?
Hmm.
But I think what you should be there for is to watch Michael B be an action star, which he is very
Yeah.
good at. You know, he hasn't done all that much really apart from like Creed. And of course he's excellent as Creed, but Creed also has like hardcore dramatic beats and intelligent writing. This is
Yeah.
just really just like watch Michael B just fuck shit up. And if that's what you want to do, I don't know. I found it entertaining. But yeah, I don't think it's like super intelligent. Like this is far cry from Born Identity or anything like that, obviously. Um, and I just enjoyed Michael B. I also enjoyed Jamie Bell, seeing them reunite post Josh Trank Fantastic Four. And I thought
Hmm.
probably the best piece of the script to me was that Jamie Bell's character, what was his name? Renner?
Deputy Director Robert
R-
Ritter.
Ritter. They make you question Ritter's
Yeah.
allegiances early on. I think they did that in an effective way.
Mhm.
Um, I thought Jodie Turner Smith, who I liked quite a bit in Queen and Slim, she's a relatively new
Yeah.
actress. I thought she was less effective in this, just
Hmm.
because she's kind of there to like be like a foil of sorts to John, but
Not really,
it's
I guess. Like
yeah,
she is, but she isn't. She's just
right.
kind of there.
And I think she's almost just there because she's like the other side of the coin after his dead wife is his wife is killed, pregnant wife is
Right.
killed. Laura London, not the most glamorous part as the female character that is there solely to get killed and motivate the male character.
Yeah.
Unfortunate cliche, but yeah, I think he's got to be there for the action.
Yeah. It's I think the action really is very good. I think um you mentioned to me, I actually didn't sit through it. I didn't watch the after credit scene,
Me
but
neither.
they're setting up a Rainbow Six sequel. I thought they were going for Ghost Recon actually, because they're
Ah,
pretty much like, you're more valuable to us as a ghost. And I'm like, oh, let's fucking do this. Let's just walk around the shadows. That was that game's whole like the
right,
objective, which is awesome. But
right.
um,
So in the books, John Clark is the founder and commander of Rainbow
Rainbow
Six.
Six, gotcha.
Obviously now it's a very successful video game franchise, but I'm actually quite curious to see if Amazon is interested in making this Rainbow Six movie. You have to imagine Paramount is no longer invested in this. Like I
Hmm.
said, though, Amazon, they got the Jack Ryan show. You could set up a crossover, make this Tom Clancy shared universe, this Ryan verse, Clancy verse, whatever it is. I don't know. Why not, right? Like you have all these other books to adapt, and you already have cast the two most famous Clancy characters by in-demand actors in
Yeah.
Krasinski and Michael B. So if they're both up for it, might as well go for it. Because I think these stuff, yeah, it's Clancy. You kind of know what you expect, but it also lends itself to more, intelligent action, thriller stuff, right? Like it's not your typical blockbuster fare, at least, even if it's a little straightforward down the middle. So
Yeah, I think that's actually
I'd
a
be
really
open
good
to it.
point. And they should. They already have a built-in audience. Like, like most males, probably like 15 to like 35 at this point, are going to watch this if they have
Mhm.
access to it, which everybody's access to Amazon. So might as well. I think just like two puzzling things to me, and I guess it's both just castings. Coleman Domingo just shows up as Pastor West for like one or two scenes.
Now that's a point of confusion I would totally agree with. I don't really know what was up with
Yeah,
that.
I was just like, I literally did like a double take. So like, is that Coleman Domingo? Like he was just in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, and
Yep. Euphoria.
yeah, Euphoria, killing the special with Zendaya, and then Guy Pearce also just taking a thankless role where he gets murked and as
Yeah.
a Secretary of Defense Thomas Clay.
You
You
kind
wouldn't
of
know.
knew he was like bad
Yeah.
so long before it finally like comes to pass, and it's like, yeah, it was a little simple. I think to the criticisms like the politics of it all, and like the blind patriotism and stuff. I think that's actually really easy to see because like the movie starts and we're literally in like war torn, bombed out Aleppo, Syria,
Mhm.
watching, you know, black ops agents do whatever they're doing in a war zone. And it's like, huh, yeah, don't know why you need to root for these guys, right? Then later
Right.
on, at the end, when Michael B is just murdering ad nauseum, right? You're like, huh,
Mhm.
well, why are these guys in Russia? You're just killing all these Russian police and military that are totally innocent and don't deserve to just get grisly murdered by Michael B. Huh. Again, don't know if you need to root for these people, but it's
Yeah.
compelling action nonetheless.
Yeah. That's the same thing as the games. Like a lot of times it doesn't make sense, but you just kind of go with it. So,
Yeah.
um, Dave, I don't think this movie is going to be nominated for a Oscar at the 2022 Oscars. Do you?
I would say no. I would
Okay.
say that's a
Well,
definitive no.
let's talk about some movies that might be. It's funny to have this conversation, right? Because we pretty much had this conversation about a lot of the movies that we're going to mention today last year. Um, Movies in 2021, as we talked about, just did not come out because of COVID.
Yeah.
So everything's getting pushed back. New York City, as of May 19th, will be at 100% openness, according to the most recent reports. So, with that, it's a pretty good indicator that movies most likely will also be coming out as scheduled. Some things still not on the schedule yet, but
Right.
we're expecting to have a really contentious, I think, race this year. There's a lot of movies that are going to be really high quality, vying for a limited number of spots. There's a lot of movies to get to today. I was thinking before we touch on the movies we did talk about, what are some movies, probably some more like blockbustery movies that are
Yeah.
going to get a lot of I don't know, a lot of attention, but probably won't get Oscar buzz.
Yeah. I think that's a good place to start. And like you said, the theaters have opened up or are about to be completely opened up. And we've seen big box office success, pandemic standards aside, recently from blockbuster fare like Godzilla versus Kong, Mortal Kombat, Demon Slayer on the anime side. you can expect these blockbusters to come out because I think we have seen that as vaccinations have increased, at least in the US and in places like China where the pandemic's under control. Uh, there is an appetite to go to the movies. And whether that continues in places like Canada and Europe, where they're in a different state of affairs, we might see really staggered releases. But I think the studios are very invested in putting these movies out, and the theater owners are obviously desperate for these movies to come out. But there's
Mhm.
also audience buy-in, which is great because obviously we've been worried about if streaming and the windowing changes would affect audience behavior. At least it hasn't completely yet. So we're gonna get all these movies, and it's May 2021, so we have a little more than half of the year left. But there is a big chunk of big movies that probably won't contend for Oscars, but will certainly contend for eyeballs, and maybe the visual effects Oscars and other stuff like that. And I mean, there's just really obvious ones, right? You got four Marvel movies: Black Widow, Eternals, Shang-Chi, and Spider-Man 3.
Yep.
You have Fast and Furious 9. You
Yeah.
have Top Gun Maverick. You
Space
have
baby.
The Suicide Squad, and you have No Time to Die.
Hmm.
Not to mention something maybe a little higher minded, but similar in Denis Villeneuve's Dune.
Yep.
This is a lot of high profile, hotly anticipated franchise films.
Yep.
Really exciting.
Very exciting. And I can't wait to watch most of these. I think like I'm a little marveled out. I think especially after Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I'm not as
Mm.
excited to watch those, but I certainly understand that there's a lot of buzz around them. I'm even thinking about some of the movies like even like Cruella, right?
Mm.
High profile. You have Emily Blunt, obviously
Mm-mm.
starring in.
Close. Emma Stone.
Sorry, Emma Stone. Jeez, I was thinking of A Quiet Place Part Two, which
Yes.
I was
There you
also
go.
going to bring up in the conversation. Emma Stone, starring in this role, um, probably not going to be nominated for an Oscar, but gonna that's gonna make a lot of money. That's gonna get a lot of attention. Kids are. I think it's gonna be you know a movie that kids can go to, but also I think adults, especially like our age range, will probably be interested because we grew up with
Mm.
101
Yeah.
Dalmatians.
That will
Um,
be on Disney Plus Premier Access as well as theaters, like Black Widow. So, money figures aside. But yeah, I think like all the Disney remakes, with the exception of like the Dumbo remake, like people are gonna go see it.
Yep. I mentioned A Quiet Place Part Two, another movie that's gonna obviously uh, probably make a lot of money.
Mhm. Oh,
um,
in the fall, we should mention Halloween Kills, the sequel to the
yep,
most recent reboot of Halloween. And of course, that was a very successful movie. So you have to imagine people are really excited to see that come October. I'm sure that will do bonkers.
yep, we're gonna have Space Jam, which I think the temperature on that has gone up since
Yeah.
the trailer. I think
Ready
people are
Player
looking.
One Part Two, by the look of
Yeah,
it. Surprising.
those Clockwork Orange people showing up was such a
Oh my God.
surprise. Did you mention Jungle Cruise,
I
which
did
is
not.
like yeah,
Who knows if that's any good? That's a
probably
Disney
not.
live action film based on a long running theme park ride at Disney
Mhm.
World starring The Rock and Emily Blunt.
Yep. We have Free Man, or is that
Free
right?
Guy,
Free Guy. Yep.
Ryan Reynolds.
Uh, Ryan Reynolds. So there's some fun movies coming out. I think then let's talk about movies that should have come out already that are coming out or we expect to come out this year and are probably going to be Oscar worthy. Where do you want to start with this one?
So there's a few obvious ones. We can start with one that's coming up very soon. That would be In the Heights, directed by John Chu, of course, the live action adaptation of Manuel Miranda's first hit musical starring Anthony Ramos, and that'll be out June 11th and also available to start on HBO Max as a Warner Brothers release. And there seems to be a lot of buzz about In the Heights, which is great. And you have to imagine this movie's going to be a huge hit, the way Hamilton was gobbled up,
Mhm.
and just how popular anything with Lynn is these days.
When you said coming out soon, you said June 11th. I was like, that's not that soon. It's very soon. It's like basically a month away. Kind of crazy. Um, yeah, no, I think In the Heights has a good shot to maybe get some, probably not like best picture, but more so some of those down ballot, like costume, set design type nominations. Similar
Does it
to
count as original song if the songs were already like written like years and years ago? Like this musical's over 10 years old. It's not like it's new. Like I
yeah.
actually don't know how that works.
Well, if we're gonna talk about original song, we might see Lin Manuel Miranda quite a bit if these do count because he also is producing Encanto for
Right.
Pixar, and he's writing the music for that. So I assume he'll probably get at least one song nominated for that. I wanted to stay in the realm of the musicals though, because we recently got the trailer for West Side Story from Steven Spielberg, his adaptation of the 1961 uh, best musical
Mhm.
to screen adaptation of all time, won 10 uh, Academy
Yep.
Awards. Why we needed this, I'm not sure. Why we needed Ansel Elgort, I
Ugh,
believe,
that is
I don't
aging
know.
poorly.
But Rita Moreno is giving her blessing and is involved, so okay.
The
I could
shot of the sharks and jets when it's like top down, it's like, yes, give me all the shots in the musicals. Let's go.
I'm excited for it, but I'm also just like we didn't need
Yeah.
this.
I
But
gotta say, similar to Ready Player One, I wish Steven Spielberg was taking a different tack with his late period career because he's an older man. He only has so many movies left. You don't need to remake West Side Story, something that was so great. It didn't. Why would you dare remake it?
yeah,
I would rather him do something like how Ridley Scott's been acting of late. We can talk about him in a second. But yeah, I think between West Side Story and In the Heights, I think both movies will be very popular, and I honestly expect both to be contending
for
with.
Best Picture.
I think so. I think In the Heights is going to be really
Wow.
well liked, and I think it could be there. The only thing that would go against it is it's coming out early. I think we should remember too that nothing that came out before March is even eligible for the upcoming Oscars due to the protracted season that just finally ended for us. So there's only so many movies even out right now that would even be eligible. So In the Heights, in a sense, might be kicking it off. As a con will be starting up around then, film festivals will actually be returning. So you know, maybe it's coming out too early, but I think both will have a really good shot.
I gotta say, if both of those are contending, this race is gonna be really tight because we're about to hit on some movies we haven't talked about that I think there's a good chance for a lot of these to at least be in the
Mm.
conversation. Just sticking with the ones we talked about last year, I think French Dispatch was one we were all really excited for. Obviously, the Wes Anderson follow up. I guess not follow up, but next film after Isle of Dogs.
Yep.
The
First live
cast.
action movie since Grand Budapest. Been a
Yep.
minute. Has that stacked Wes Anderson cast as you'd expect.
Yep.
Now this is a Searchlight's now under Disney's purview. We don't have a release date yet. I have to imagine they'll be putting this out in the theaters in the fall, and eventually it would wind up on Hulu, but no date yet. But they're going to put it out because this movie's been in the can for almost 2 years at this point.
Yep. You mentioned Dune. I mean, that movie is pretty much doing everything it can to get award buzz. I think this is trying to be like the tenet of the race for
Mm.
this year, where it's just gonna look awesome. It's gonna have great visual effects. Gonna have a stacked cast. We'll see if it hits with critics. You seem not so sure. It seems.
Well, just because Blade Runner 2049, Denny's last effort, also an IP adaptation, didn't get as
Mhm.
many awards plaudits as maybe people thought it should. Obviously, Deakins won for cinematography, which was no small feat, but I think WB and Denny and friends would really like Dune to have a big awards run. And I think it should because it's a different type of movie, but it's still high minded, assuming it's good, of course. So I definitely rooting for it. That one comes out October 1st.
So, are there any others that we haven't mentioned that we talked about last year, like big ones that might be contending?
In terms of big movies, I think those are like quote all the big ones. Last Night in Soho, Edgar Wright's film comes out at the end of
Yeah.
October. Anya Taylor-Joy's in that. Don't know too much about that, but it's Edgar Wright, so people are excited about it. That was supposed to come out in 2020. In terms of other movies that are supposed to come out in 2020, you have the Aretha Franklin biopic Respect, starring
Mhm.
Jennifer Hudson, who of course is an Oscar winner. That comes out uh, towards the end of the year.
The
Obviously,
Elvis biopic too. at some
I don't
point,
think that's
probably.
dated for this year. They pushed that back. Yeah, there
Oh,
has
really?
been some stuff delayed. Yeah, that's the Baz Luhrmann movie with
Mhm.
Austin
Austin
Butler.
Butler, Tom
Yeah,
Hanks.
yeah, I believe that pushed out. Movie we talked about last time was King Richard, the Will
Mhm.
Smith biopic as Richard Williams, the father of Venus and Serena. Big Willie hasn't made a serious awards run in several years, so people might be excited about if it's a really good performance to get Will Smith back into that sort of thing. So definitely keep an eye on that. That one's coming out around Thanksgiving, so a long way to go there. I mean, there's other stuff that we knew about, like smaller stuff like the Green Knight, the A24 movie with Dev Patel coming out in July. Um, I mean, yeah, there's tons of little notes, but I mean, I think a lot of the, I think more exciting Oscar hopefuls were actually movies that we didn't really have dated for 2020 when everything went to shit. Um, and I think that's what the big takeaway is, right? You have all these holdover movies from 2020, a big slate of blockbusters, and then a lot of other movies that weren't actually 2020 holdovers, but are made by like top tier directors. Like there are tons of best director winners and best director nominated directors with movies coming out this year. Like it's going to be a
Mhm.
bloodbath.
It's gonna be absolutely insane. I'm trying to think about like the movies that we probably expect to be coming out next because a lot of these still don't have dates officially attached, but we are excited about them. And a movie that comes to mind that I expect to be seeing somewhat soon is No Sudden Move from Soderbergh. There isn't a set date, but you have to imagine, especially because they also have the other Soderbergh film, Kimmy, I think it's called. Um,
Yeah. He
you
stopped
have to
filming, or he finished filming No Sun Move back in November, and we know how
November, so it's
fast.
ready.
Yeah, I'm sure that's completely locked in already, and that cast is super exciting. That'll be on HBO Max, so it's Steven Soderbergh, so people pay attention.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about our excitement for that when we reviewed the last Soderbergh movie. I'm blanking on the name,
Let
but
them all talk.
yes, let them all talk. So that one stands out to me as one that we might be seeing soon. Um, in terms of like other really big uh, directors, I mean, Guillermo del Toro with
Yeah,
Nightmare Alley coming out December 3rd. I mean, his first film that he's directing since The Shape of Water,
yeah. When
obviously.
he won Best Director.
Yeah, it did pretty well there. Yeah, Bradley Cooper, Kate Blanchett. I mean, this cast is absolutely stacked. But like Tony Collette, Willem Dafoe, Rooney
Yeah,
Mara, it's nuts. And you have to think. I mean, this is based off a 1946 movie with Del Toro's style and just ability to direct. That this is going to be a really interesting movie to watch, and we're going to be seeing a lot of Bradley Cooper. And I noticed a lot of actors repeating in terms of like seeing them in these big movies. So I think potential for multiple nominations in a couple of different movies. You mentioned all those directors. How about your guy Paul Thomas Anderson? He's got a movie coming out this year, Soggy Bottom.
yeah. Not sure if that's the final title, but Soggy Bottom, the next PTA movie, with also Bradley Cooper, dated for Christmas Eve right now. Again, it's PTA. People will be paying attention. Case
Mhm.
closed.
Yeah. That movie I can't wait for. Which other ones are you thinking? Or I mean, Ridley Scott.
Yeah, so Ridley Scott, uh, well into his 80s at this point, and this guy does not know how to stop working, and you have to respect that. He has The Last Duel, which we had known about a little bit longer, which is the Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, Adam Driver, Jodie Comer movie that also is
Yeah.
written by Nicole Holofcener. Sign me up for that. That comes out in October. And then, about 6 weeks later, around Thanksgiving, you have House of Gucci coming out, which I believe is still filming right now, but it's probably almost done. And that, of course, stars Adam Driver and Lady Gaga about the assassination of Gucci, the founder of, Gucci, the fashion brand. And, you know, Ridley is not prone, is certainly prone to having a dud, here and there.
Sure.
So there's no guarantee that both these movies are good. But when you have this kind of cast signed up and, people be paying attention, they're coming out in the fall. So definitely exciting.
And you mentioned people that keep working as they get older. Your guy Clint Eastwood also has a movie coming out that he's not only directing but starring in. The dude is 90. and he's making Cry Macho, where he's
Yes.
playing this like rodeo star who friends a boy, and I guess he has to like basically like take care of the boy or like save him from his situation with his mother. It sounds like the type of movie that is perfect Oscar bait. You have to imagine Clint getting up there in age. People are going to want to probably reward it
Mm.
if it's good. So I think
He's
it could make a strong push.
Yeah, his movies actually haven't been super well recognized at the Oscars the past few years, like The Mule, Richard Jewell, like close but no cigar for those. But yeah, um, Clint keeps trying. He works as fast as he can, seemingly. One take Clint, as they say. Um, Also, some of older figures. We have Paul Schrader's next movie, The Card Counter. Obviously,
Mhm.
First Reformed got some love. 2018 Card Counter stars Oscar Isaac. Also has Willem Dafoe in it. I believe this has already completely been filmed. Another exciting one.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There's also like a ton of Netflix movies that don't have dates yet, but we know they're coming. A few of those we mentioned last time. Andrew Dominic's Blonde, the Marilyn Monroe biopic starring Anna Armas. Uh, you know, I think that was easy to understand why that's attractive. Andrew Dominic does not make a whole lot of movies, apart from some work on Mindhunter season 2. We haven't seen him
Mhm.
in several years, so that's cool. We also have Don't Look Up, which is a newer Netflix movie. That's the Adam McKay one with crazy cast: Leonardo DiCaprio, Jennifer Lawrence, Kate Blanchett, Chalamet, and many others. We have another movie we knew about before, The Tragedy of Macbeth, Joel
Mhm.
Cohen, starring Denzel Washington and Frances McDormand, NBD.
Yeah.
uh, yeah, smaller movies like you have Hand of God or Palo Sorrentino's next movie that'll be on Netflix. You
Yeah.
have Tick Tick Boom, Lin Manuel Miranda's directorial debut.
Yep.
Um, Passing, the Sundance hit that they acquired, Rebecca Hall's directorial debut, starring Ruth Negga and Tessa Thompson. Netflix, they are a major figure in the award season at this point. We've really seen it the past few years. They don't have a best picture yet, but again, they'll be putting another strong foot forward to try and finally break through. That seems pretty obvious.
For sure. Out of these Netflix ones, because it is a little bit of like a dog eat dog type thing, I imagine, where I think, especially as movie theaters are opening up, I know a lot of movies are going to be released simultaneously in this next year, hopefully exclusively for this year. But I have to imagine that some of the voters will be giving a little bit of a edge to movies that maybe help the box office or help drive up the stature of movies right now. I couldn't. I really can't see too many streaming services getting the call if some of these other movies that are put out in theaters are just up to the quality. Like I think of something like the new Denzel movie, A Journal of Jordan,
Yeah.
where Michael B. Jordan is starring in this, and it's based on a novel of the same name, coming out early December the
Yeah.
10th.
I believe that's a Sony movie.
Seems like this is kind of being set up to be something that could really rival something like Tick Tick Boom, which is also like autobiographical. And I think if it comes down to one of those two, I think voters would probably much rather go for a movie that's released in theaters initially and not
Mm.
one that's put out on streaming. I could see that becoming, I don't know, a conversation around the
Yeah,
awards.
that's an interesting thought because on the other hand, Netflix employs so many people. The
True.
majority of the academy, working academy anyways, probably work for Netflix at this point.
That's a good point.
So it's tough. I think it's really hard to know how much Netflix bias there still is because again, they've been getting tons and tons of nominations the past few years. But yeah, this year does present its own challenges with the desire to save the theatrical movie going business and
Mhm.
thus keep everyone working the way they'd like to be. So yeah, tough to really know until we fast forward a year, I guess.
Yeah. Just kind of looking, are there any other movies you want to shout out? I think I had two that kind of stood out as some of those like lower, maybe not lower, but like those smaller movies that could really stand out, like a Nomadland, so to speak.
Mm,
One that really stood out to me is a movie called Coda. which was
Yeah,
purchased by Apple Plus out of Sundance for $25 million. Set a record. Um, it
coming out in
stars
August, I believe.
stars actress named Amelia Jones. Seems like this is one of her like really first big roles. She plays a teenager who is the only person in her family who can hear. She is very musical, and it's kind of about her journey as she starts to like love music and kind of grow in that world. And that feels like something that, obviously, if it's coming out of Sundance and being purchased for the most money, probably Apple has a lot of stock in it, but they're also dropping it in early August. So I could see that having a like never, rarely, sometimes, always type arc where when it comes out, we're like, this looks like it could be Oscar nominated. And then when it comes time, it just loses steam for the run. That one's on my radar for sure.
Mhm. Oh well, along those lines, we should consider everything A24 has coming out this
Sure.
year. Dated for the end of June, we have Zola, which was a big hit at Sundance 2020, starring Taylor Page.
Mhm.
Supposed to be really great. Looking forward to that. There's also a bunch of other A24 movies that we knew about last year and just don't have dates yet, but we know they're finished. That would be Mike Mills' Come On, starring Joaquin Phoenix, Kogonada's After Yang with Haley Richardson, The Souvenir Part 2 from Joanna Hogg, Souvenir Part
Mhm.
1. So The Souvenir was a kind of a sleeper indie hit. Really like that one. Um, and I think you mentioned Coda. That's clearly Apple's,
Yep.
throw of the dart there.
Jam.
And then I think then you get to the point where, oh, that's right. You mentioned this one last year too. Another movie that we know is finished. That would be Next Goal Wins, the Taika Waititi movie with
Oh
Michael
yeah.
Fassbender, the soccer film. Um, no
Fast
date
Bender
yet.
season, baby.
Yeah, but you have to imagine that's going to come out this year. I can't see anything that's been filmed being held this year. I think a lot of the stuff that's filming now, maybe that gets held due to the just the bulk on the calendar, like Bullet Train, David Leitch's
Mhm.
movie starring Brad Pitt, action thriller. They're filming that now. I doubt they try and force that in to this year's season. Uh, Also, you have Canterbury Glass, the newly titled David O. Russell film that has a very stacked cast. As far as we know, that's still filming. So again, I don't know if they're going to rush to put these movies out during this season. Um,
One
I
other one that stood out as possibility is the new Michael Showalter movie, The Eyes of Tammy Faye, looking at
yeah,
the televangelist Tammy Faye Baker and Jim Baker.
yeah,
You
right
got
about that one.
Jessica Chastain and Andrew Garfield again. Garfield season this year. Um, yeah, I think that one could have a chance. Probably going to be at Toronto Film Fest.
Mhm.
Release late September, so it's kind of around that award season time.
Should also note that Robert Eggers has another movie coming out after The Witch and The Lighthouse. He once again has Anya Taylor Joy in the fold. This is called The Northman, which is set in 10th century Iceland, which stars Alexander Skarsgård as a Nordic prince who seeks revenge after his father is murdered. Also has Willem Dafoe back, like from The Lighthouse. It's Robert Eggers. He definitely has a unique style to him, and obviously, anything with Anya Taylor Joy, I feel like is required viewing these days. So
Yeah.
another movie that I believe it's been filmed because Anya was filming this back when she was doing Queen's Gambit press. So I'm pretty sure this movie's done at this point. No date yet though.
Few more films I just wanted to shout out, and then maybe we'll make a few predictions, if we will. Um, the Summer of Love, the Questlove documentary,
Yeah,
got a lot of buzz at Sundance this year. Won the Sundance Grand Jury Prize, the Audience Award for Documentary. Probably, obviously not a Best Picture runner, but one that you're going to be hearing a lot about. And it sounds super interesting, chronicling Black Woodstock, the Harlem Culture Festival of 1989, or 1969. Sorry. And then there's is there a chance Killer of the Flower Moon,
mm.
late entry into the race, maybe like that January, February drop, and then we're just like, man, Scorsese just fucking wrecked this race, just destroyed it.
So they just started filming Killers of the Flower Moon. So
Mhm.
I don't think they would force this one in.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know though. I'd say probably not. Again,
I don't think
there,
so either, but
yeah,
if
that's
it
exciting though,
does,
right? And there's tons of other movies, but I mean, we've just named so many people that are Oscar winners and Oscar nominated people. Like, it's going to be tough, and I think it'll actually make for a really fun award season, assuming award season gets to return to like its normal ways, where it's much more buzzy and people
Mhm.
are actually seeing the movies, which is kind of the whole point of everything. So, uh,
Dave,
it's exciting.
give me like three movies that you feel really strongly will be Best Picture nominated.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. French Dispatch, West Side Story, take those to the bank, both of
Hmm.
them. And let's see. Hmm, it's hard to say. I'm really confident in the Heights, but I wouldn't lock it in. I'm confident in Respect. I'm confident in King Richard. Let's put House of Gucci in there, third lock.
That's that's a call, man. Because House of Gucci feels like the biggest boom or bust one. I like it though.
Driver, baby.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with. I'm gonna pick three different ones from you. I think whatever PTAs ends up being named will be in there.
Yep,
We'll call it soggy bottom for now. I think the card counter. I think
that'd be
Paul
dope.
Schrader is gonna be like anointed after this movie, and Oscar Isaac is just gonna rise. And, in looking through the rest, I think this movie Passing, the Rebecca
Yes.
Hall movie
If
with
you're picking a Netflix movie, I think that's the best pick.
I think Tessa Thompson and Ruth Nega. I think that's going to be the one that comes out, and people are like, "Huh, okay, like, we gotta check it out now." So
Yeah.
that's
Something
going to
for
be my
Netflix
three.
is going to get picked, so it's smart to pick one of them at least. So I
Mhm.
agree.
If you had to pick one of the movies we mentioned that you think is just going to totally disappoint or fall flat, any that stand out to you?
Oh man, that's hard.
Yeah, it's
Um,
hard.
I just get this feeling that like I wouldn't be shocked if Nightmare Alley doesn't do as much as it's supposed to. It's
Hmm.
Del Toro, so he's kind of goes to the beat of his own drum a little bit. It's got a stellar cast though. Hard to pick against it.
Yeah, that one stood out to me as well, and I think maybe it's because like I really don't know much about it. Maybe if I did a little more reading, I'd feel good about it. Um, But I guess as I'm looking, I think Respect. While I think that the songs are going to be good, I think it could be kind of like the Billie Holiday of the
Oh
awards
yeah,
season, where really strong performance, but just doesn't really land. Although there's a lot of good people attached to it, so um, I hope it doesn't turn out that way. But that would be my call. Anyways, drop us your predictions. Drop us the movies you're most excited for. What did we miss? What are your locks for the next year's award season? And stay tuned with us by subscribing on youtube.com/nostalgiapod, soundcloud.com/nostalgiapod, and on Twitter at nostalgiapod. Dave, what do we got for next week?
yeah. So we got debut album from Squid, the British post-punk rock group, very moving in the same circles as bands we've already discussed, like Black Country New Road and Black Midi. Very exciting over in England. Also had the debut album from All Black, probably the most celebrated new rapper out of the Bay Area. I think obviously after E40, after Too Short, who do people really ride for these days? I think that's All Black. We'll be talking about him. That's fun. NCT Dream, K-pop, dropping their debut subunit album on Monday, so we got that. And oh, got that TDE tease this Friday. Top Dog Entertainment dropping an album. It's probably Isaiah Rashad. We're not sure. It could be nothing. Could be SZA. It's not Kendrick Lamar. Don't say that. But it's probably something. And if so, we'll talk about that. And then there's a movie we have to discuss. And I think this is just a what the fuck movie from what I understand. It's called Mainstream, starring Andrew Garfield from Gia
Yes,
Coppola of the Coppola family,
let's do
and
it, man.
apparently it's she's the granddaughter of Francis Ford Coppola. So yeah, we got some stuff, no problem.
We'll be talking about it all and see you next week.